Would you believe that there was a documented serial killer in the Philippines that dates back all the way to the Spanish colonial era? The killer apparently murdered people to save his ill mother. What were his motives? What made him do it? I am Jairo Bolledo, Rappler's crime reporter. Tune in to this episode of Kriminal, now a true crime podcast. Let's talk about Father Juan Severino Mallari, the quote-unquote first Filipino serial killer. It was during the early 1800s in Magalang town in Pampanga, located in the central region of the Philippines. In a matter of 10 years, 57 people were murdered one by one in the small town. Unfortunately, there were no historical records detailing the murders of these Kapampangans, but one thing was clear. Only one person took these innocent lives. Magalang town is only around 97 square kilometers, and even without size, the killer was able to dodge authorities for at least a decade. The revelation of the true identity of the serial killer was even more shocking. It was the town's very own cura parroco or parish priest, Father Juan Severino Mallari. Sing Sing, a reading published by the Holy Angel University's Center for Kapampangan Studies, said Father Mallari's mother fell ill and the priest thought he could save his mother by killing his parishioners. An account by Spanish chronicler Sinibaldo de Mas on Father Mallari's crime states, and I quote, "Because he believed that he could, by this means, save his mother, who he persuaded himself had been bewitched." In Filipino, quote-unquote, kinulam means being cursed by a bad entity. The account was recorded in Blair and Robertson's The Philippine Island series and was published by Robbie Tantingco of the Center for Kapampangan Studies. But what really happened to Father Mallari? In detailing the life of the parish priest, Tantingco cited Dr. Luciano Santiago's Kapampangan Pioneers in the Philippine Church 1592 to 2001, also published by the Center for Kapampangan Studies. According to Tantingco's blog, Father Mallari was likely a native of Macabebe, a town more than an hour away from Magalang. After completing his seminary studies from the University of Santo Tomas, one of the oldest educational institutions in the country, Father Mallari was ordained as priest in 1809. He later became coadjutor of the towns Gapang, Lubao, and Bacolor, which were all then part of Pampanga. In the short span of his priesthood, Father Mallari faced many rejections. He applied as parish priest of Orani in Bataan, but he was rejected. Father Mallari tried again his luck and applied to Mariveles, still in Bataan, but he failed once more. In Lubao, where he served as coadjutor, Father Mallari also failed to become a parish priest. In the port of Cavite, he applied as a chaplain but was also rejected, according to Tantingco. 3 years after his ordination, the heavens finally answered his prayer. He was appointed as parish priest of San Bartolome Parish in Magalang in 1812. It was also the same time when his mother became ill. According to Tantingco, there were no historical records revealing the illness of Father Mallari's mother except that he believed his mother was bewitched. Aside from his priesthood, Father Mallari is also known in the field of arts. From the late 1700s and early 1800s, there were a number of Filipino artists which specialized in engraving and in painting religious subjects, according to Tantingco. Among them was Father Mallari, who specialized in calligraphic drawings. In fact, some of his works were preserved in the archives of the Archdiocese of Manila. Father Mallari was recognized as among the first Filipino calligraphy artists and priests. Based on records, Father Mallari used calligraphic drawings to decorate his annual parish report called Planes de Almas. His favorite subjects included flowery vines and angels in clouds. Despite his accomplishments, Father Mallari still fell victim to mental instability, according to Tantingco. His mother's illness and other stressful events in his life aggravated his mental health problems. When Father Mallari was arrested for his crimes, he had already fallen ill due to alleged psychosis. Despite his mental condition, the Spanish authorities, known for their poor treatment of Filipinos at that time, still arrested him and imprisoned him like a regular detainee. Father Mallari was not brought to a mental institution. Historian Dr. Santiago, who is also a psychiatrist, said Father Mallari's case was quote-unquote unusual and highly irregular because Spaniards pioneered humane treatment for patients with mental health problems. Dr. Santiago said Spain founded one of the first psychiatric hospitals in Europe, Hospital de Inocentes, or in English, Hospital of the Innocents. The hospital's name emphasized the quote-unquote innocence of mentally ill patients who quote-unquote were not supposed to be held responsible for their actions. The historian added that when Father Mallari was arrested in 1826, the Hospicio de San Jose had been operating for 15 years. So, instead of a regular prison, the priest should have been taken there. Not only that, instead of siding with his client, Father Mallari's lawyer talked against him. An account by Spanish chronicler Sinibaldo de Mas said, and I quote, "The attorney on that case talked in pathetic terms of the indescribable and barbarous prodigality of bloodshed by that monster." Sinibaldo de Mas' account also mentioned that Father Mallari's case is an example of the Indios or Filipinos' tendency to believe in ghost stories. After 14 years in jail, Father Mallari was executed by hanging in 1840. With his condition and the lack of proper intervention from the Spanish colonizers, Dr. Santiago said the priest was quote-unquote clearly a victim of injustice. Father Mallari is believed to be the first Filipino priest executed by the Spanish colonizers. He was hanged more than 30 years before the execution of the martyrs Fathers Mariano Gomez, Jose Burgos, and Jacinto Zamora, collectively known as Gomburza. The Gomburza priests were hanged in 1872. Although Father Mallari's story is not well known to the public, he has secured his place in history for 3 reasons, according to Tantinko. First, he is among the first Filipino calligraphic artists/priest. Father Mallari is believed to be the first Filipino priest executed by the Spanish colonizers, and he is among the first documented serial killers in the country. To discuss more about Father Mallari's case, we have Roby Tantinko of the Holy Angel University's Center for Kapampangan Studies. For our first question, paano na-reintroduce ang kwento ni Father Juan Severino Mallari sa mga Kapampangan at sa mga Pilipino in general?
We first heard of the name Juan Severino Mallari through the book that we published, and this is the book of Dr. Luciano Santiago, a well-known historian and psychiatrist as well. Because we published the book, we read its contents, and by reading the contents, we got to know for the first time about the story of this amazing story of this little known, or I can say unknown, previously unknown priest serial killer in one of our towns here in Pampanga. And because we published that book and we marketed that book, it caught the imagination, the attention of our fellow Kapampangans, and later on the world. Since then, many film producers, many media people have come to us wanting to know more about him.
Second question, may mga iba't ibang opinion lang on how media and other platforms package stories on serial killers. Sa inyo pong palagay, paano natin pwedeng alalahanin pa rin ang kwento ni Father Mallari na may sensitivity pa rin?
Unang-una, we are a little concerned that some sectors might be sensationalizing it or missing the whole point. Uh, to us, the more important point about all of this is really not the fact that a priest was, tagged as a serial killer, which in itself is really sensational, but uh, the the sad story behind it. The sad story being that he did it not because he was a vile and evil person, but he was sick in the mind because of some personal and probably domestic problems, some mental health issues. Uh, and the fact that he was tried uh, as a common criminal, as a murderer, and uh, and according to the historian who discovered him and presented him to us, he should have been tried as not as a common criminal, but rather as a psychiatric case. In fact, nakalagay sa libro niya as a as a as a way of expressing his personal opinion as a psychiatrist as well as a historian. He said that he was a little bit surprised because at the time in our history and in the history of Spain, uh, Spain had already pioneered the merciful treatment of people who are psychiatric cases who commit crimes, and they already opened an asylum for such lawbreakers to be treated humanely. So nagtataka siya, bakit sa Pilipinas ganyan ang treatment nila? Ba't ginanyan nila ang taong ito? Obviously na baliw siya. No? Pero of course, the reason behind that is dahil napakalayo ng Spanya sa Pilipinas, it took months for any traveler or any news to come to this very distant colony. So baka, tsaka siguro sobrang shocking nung ginawa niya, sobrang na-shock ang mga authorities, kaya pinataw nila sa kanya yung pinaka-maximum na penalty.
Third question, parang may awkward lang na claim kasi he's an artist and also a serial killer. How do Kapampangans deal with this?
The instability, the psychological siguro pathology or mental instability. And one way of dealing with that is, doing creative output. In fact, there was criticism also about his subject matter. Diba? Yung mga naked angels. These are not infant angels or disembodied angels like cherubim with only the face that you see on the clouds, in the clouds. But these are like puberty age angels, little boys, not toddlers, but boys who are naked, which is unusual. So meron ding angle na ganun about this personality. So, everyone naman is multifaceted. No? You cannot box every single person into only this or only that. But every one of us is a mixture of this and that. So we're not totally good, neither are we totally bad.
Second to the last question, there's a debate whether he is a victim or villain. Ano pong stance nyo dito or palagay nyo dito?
Well, I'm not here to pass judgment. No? Unang-una, napaka-konti, napaka-scarce ng research material at hand. If you want to be fair to him and to those he victimized allegedly, then we should get our data complete. No? Pero based on the available material that we have, I think uh, maybe there are no victimizers in this situation. Everybody is a victim. Of course, obviously, victim yung mga parishioners who died. Victim din siya in the sense that he was not totally responsible for his deeds. His deeds might be evil, but probably he was not an evil person. He was a sick person, sick in the head. And he was victimized later on because he was executed for something we should not totally and completely make him feel responsible for, you know, or blame for. We should not make him. We should not blame him completely for what he did. Kasi nga may sakit yung ulo niya. So, yun. So, I'm not here to pass judgment. As an enthusiast of history, we're here only to see what was recorded and interpret it for the readers. But we don't really know for sure.
Last question, ano ang moral ng kwento ni Father Mallari?
Unang-una, we should not use the story as an attack, no? Or we should not use it to attack, for example, parish priests. Although we have cases now of erring priests, maraming ganyan ngayon, no? That's a different category altogether, because those priests are not sick in the mind. Maybe they are not. We don't know. But yung case ni Padre Mallari is a severe, intense case. The moral probably here is to be compassionate. No? Compassionate, of course, to the victims, but compassionate also to a person who obviously is a victimizer, but for all we know, once we get all our facts in, is probably also a victim himself. So just because he's a serial killer doesn't mean he is totally responsible for what he did. Tsaka, with further research, facts might be emerging that he did not do it alone. Because I heard from one researcher that he found material showing that his family aided him in the execution of his dastardly acts. We don't know yet for sure. So, napaka-scant kasi, napaka-scarce ng material. So, I think when we present his story, we should present the story as it is, as the data is available. Not to jump into speculation or fill in the gaps or fill in the blanks with imaginative speculation.
If you have suggested topics for this podcast, you can message me at my Twitter account at Jairo Giorno or email me at jairo.bolledo@rappler.com. The crime scene is just the beginning. We tell you the full story here in Kriminal, Rappler's True Crime Podcast. Thank you for listening. See you next time.